right, world, how you doing? It's the Edi Johnston Bit, back with another Spin the Wheel podcast, back with the top quality chat for you with me and Spinny. Oh yes, no expense spared. Well, very little expense spared. Top quality straight out of IKEA, resplendent in his black, white and orange glory. You can see that if you're watching on the YouTube. If you're not and you're listening, then you'll just have to take my word for it. And yeah, it's really quite something to be seen. Anyway, enough of that. Let's tell you about the guest who's going to be answering the questions set by Spinny in today's episode. Today, featuring Mr. Jesse Quin. Jesse is the bass player out of Keane, also one of the multi-instrumentalists from Mount Desolation. You might remember Keane off of the 90s and 2000s, still rocking, still gigging all over the place, all over the globe. And I caught up with him a couple of weeks ago when he had a bit of a chat from his Suffolk home, and we caught up. I haven't seen Jesse for a little while, but we caught up over the things he's been up to during lockdown, and him answering some of the questions and finding out about some of his adventures and some of his travels across the globe as a globe-trotting rock superstar. So yes, are you ready for this? Exciting times. Okay, on your marks, get set, spin the wheel. And welcome to the Spin the Wheel podcast, Mr. Jesse Quin. How you doing, Jess? You all right?
Very well, thanks, Eddie.
Jolly good. You are looking nice and relaxed down there in... Is it Suffolk you're in?
Yep. East Coast.
Not an area of the world I know particularly well. Whereabouts are you?
We're not far from the sea. We're just above Ipswich, basically. So if you sort of go a bit further towards the sea, a bit up from Ipswich, we're kind of around there. Yeah, I love it here. I grew up around here and swore I'd never move back. And then like people, had kids and thought actually it's really nice there. So we've been back 8 years, I think, and I can't imagine living anywhere else now. I love it.
Is it a couple of little boys you've got? Am I right?
A boy and a girl. I've got a little girl called Harper who's 9, and a little boy called Hudson who's 7. And
that's a good time of life. 9 and 7. That's fun times.
They're great. But they just went back to school, and Huddy's definitely having some anxiety with all the COVID stuff, and brother coming up and saying, "What's this?" And he'll show me a little dot on his hand. It's like a crumb. "What's this? Is it going to hurt me?" And I'm like, "No, you're fine." So there's I think everyone's had some mental health stuff to deal with, but it's slightly more heartbreaking when it's your kids. To
be honest, you don't think about it when it's kids, I guess. You just think that kids are so resilient, they just bounce back and they don't really understand stuff, and they'll just mumble through it.
But they're all right.
The sun's shining, they can get out and play and catch up with their mates. Lovely days. So I actually know very little about you other than the fact that you're in Suffolk and you know my missus. So bass player for the band Keane.
Yeah.
And in Mount Desolation as well.
Yeah.
What other muso projects have you been involved in, or should I know about?
I've done a bunch of bits and bobs, really. I've played with a few people. I used to play in Laura Marling's band, who's a folk singer. Yeah, done little odds and sods with lots of people. Yeah, actually having a bit of a kind of a new surge of energy for some new projects, I think.
Nice.
I'm sort of I've got a couple of ideas that I'd like to do. I've got a solo album that I've just finished, which I'm pretty pleased with. It's very sort of dark and sounds a bit like a film score.
Oh, cool.
And then a couple of other ideas I've got. So lots to keep me busy.
Bass is the instrument that I know you best for, but is that your primary musical tool, or?
So I wouldn't say really I have a primary instrument. I used to feel sort of slightly ashamed of the fact that I was a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. But lately, I've decided that I should accept that that's it's a good thing.
Definitely.
So I think if I could say one thing about my musicianship, it's that I can sort of I can wrangle a usable sound out of lots of different instruments.
I think as a someone who has pretended to write songs most of his life, I just have had to hang around with musicians because I always considered myself musical, but I could never actually create what was going on in my head. So I had to kind of like hum things to other people and stuff like that. So to have the ability to do all of that myself would be very valuable. So here's Spinny. It's 24 questions, all completely random. Some of them very deep, some of them not in the slightest. We'll see exactly what happens. Okay, number 19. What's your favourite way to travel?
Oh, that's a good question. Do you know what? There's two kinds of travel. There's going somewhere because you've got to get there, and there's going somewhere because it's a place you're interested in going to.
Okay.
And if I'm traveling somewhere and it's sort of work related, or there's a kind of work element, I love to go by train. Absolutely love it. If it's sort of leisure, then you can't beat a road trip. It's only recently that I've discovered the joy of driving really slowly. So, like if you've got to drive from sort of London to Scotland, usually it's like, get your foot down, get there, sitting fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I'll kind of like cruise along at 60 and like, oh, that looks like an interesting town, stop off, see what's going on. And
amazing.
You end up like having a much better time.
Yeah, definitely.
But my car's really boring. I sort of wish I had even a kind of old car with a tape player I'd like, but I've got this sort of like super dad car, and like.
Well, you're at that stage of life, right?
Yeah, it's true.
So
it's true.
It's a necessity. I used to love a car with a tape deck. Yeah, there's something to be said about just putting some tunes on, going for a bit of a drive.
I get musical option paralysis when I get in the car. I'll look at Spotify for 10 minutes before I even switch the engine on.
I have to admit, I'm still a bit of a Luddite, so it tends to be a case of, okay, I'm taking these CDs with me. We've got a CD player in the car. So, hence the reason why I still have CDs. But I'm a big advocate of a train ride.
I've done a bunch of that with Keane, where we've either, sort of trying to be a bit more environmentally conscious and not fly, or because there's enough time to do it and it's fun. We've done a lot of train travel, and there is something about it. We did, when I first started playing with the band, we went and recorded in Berlin. We did two-week sessions in Berlin.
Right.
And it was all new to me. I was from proper travel lodge sofa surfing territory. That was my experience of music. And we kind of went and stayed at this like 5-star hotel for 2 weeks. And
amazing.
Feeling like I had to sort of tidy up after myself. But we took the night train out there. And you get like a little cabin and a bunk or whatever. And we were just sitting there, with a bottle of beer and some food. And remember this kind of like Bavarian character with a pipe who kept sort of stopping off at every station to smoke his pipe.
Amazing.
It's so lovely traveling like that. I don't know what it is about it. It's just sort of feeling like you don't have to think about it partly, I think. Yeah.
You're taking that responsibility away from yourself. You don't have to worry about taking the wrong turn. The only pressure that you got is time. Jumping on a train with a book or a newspaper, getting a few little munchies, getting whatever else you want in your ears, listen to a podcast or an audiobook or something like that. There's something to be said. I don't know what it's like travelling by train overseas, I'll be honest.
Much better.
Is it?
Generally speaking, apart from America, the trains in America are a bit rubbish, but the trains in Europe are absolutely brilliant. And the bullet train in Japan is great fun as well.
Wow.
You sort of see this incredible countryside that is so different from like going from Suffolk down through Essex.
Yeah, a little bit different. Number 15 says, where do you go to get away from it all?
We're really lucky where we live because we're on a river. Yeah. And there's a lovely path that just runs along it for miles. So quite often I'll sort of take the dog for a walk along there, and I really like that. Or I went down there the other day with my old film camera, and I had this idea of doing there's this really cool wooden hut that's kind of in the middle of nowhere. Yeah. It's a boathouse. I thought, I'll do a photo montage for that, and then kind of sweeping along the river and getting some of the other bank. It's a really big river. The other bank is all fields and trees and stuff.
Nice.
And it's absolutely stunning. So I find it very sort of peaceful down there. And in the summer, I'll swim in it quite, almost every day if the weather's good.
Yeah.
There's a little wooden jetty that you can go down. And I find that's kind of like the closest thing to like proper relaxation in my life. Actually, the river swimming, I went in for the first time and I thought, this is so unbelievably brilliant. I love it. And so I went in every day for a couple of weeks, and with tide permitting. And then I got this human kind of like gremlin that was like, you've got to get amazing at front crawl, and you've got to get a wetsuit and do it through winter. And you've got to get all the gear. And then I thought, hang on. What is it that I actually like about it? And what I love about it is because it's tidal and it's salt water, you can just lie on your back and float. And what I adore doing, and it's the closest thing to like pure happiness to me, is there's a lovely old wooden boat that's moored where I get in, and I swim over to it, and I just lie on my back and look at the sky. And it is just so relaxing. Whenever I think about kind of doing front crawl for miles, I instantly feel kind of tense. So there's a lesson in that, don't hijack your own happiness.
It's definitely an adult competitive complex, isn't it? It's this, even if there's nobody else around, we'll still find some way in which we can be competitive to try to make things better, or just try to, I guess that is something that you don't consider at all when you're a child. Obviously you want to be the best, but you don't think about how can I be better at this? I just do it.
Well, it gets drummed into you at school, doesn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. There's that whole process.
And we've got to beat the other school and all this kind of stuff. And like when you're a kid, the idea of like playing football is just like, oh, it's fun to kick a ball. It's only when you're like 16 that you're like, I could have a shot playing for, Chelsea or whatever.
I guess the innate competitive sportsman in me means I don't ever remember just kicking a ball. There was always, absolutely. Even if it was just me and a ball, there'd still be, okay, I'm going to hit that post, or there'd still be a drive towards it. Yeah, I was very much motivated by that kind of thing. It's quite nice though that you've managed to find somewhere so local to you that you can just get away from stuff and find some serenity and stuff.
Yeah, there's also in our town, and people always think this is a bit weird, there's this absolutely lovely Quaker burial ground, and it's just kind of like it's old red brick wall around this patch of grass with some graves and stuff and a huge horse chestnut tree. Yeah. And there's a couple of benches in there. The most calm, peaceful place. People are like, where do you hang out? I'm like, well, I like to hang out in the graveyard.
Okay. Nothing more to add to that one, to be brutally honest. Let's see if we can get something a little bit lighter, shall we? If you could make a support bubble for a current celebrity, who would that be?
I've no idea who I'd want to lumber myself with. But I can think of loads of people it'd be interesting to lumber together.
Okay, we'll go for that then.
Are you allowed to document it?
Yeah.
We can make a reality TV show out of the bubble and have like Piers Morgan and someone that he hates or something.
You've got a lot of people to choose from, haven't you, in that particular scenario?
Someone that will really make his life a misery, but he'll come out the other end a new man, That kind of thing. I'd watch that. People that think they have all of the answers drive me nuts. Anyone who thinks that they don't have a lot to learn from people that have different opinions to them, it's just the height of stupidity. I find it sort of a sad. It's probably a byproduct of social media and stuff, but people are so kind of angry with each other.
It's a lot of it about. Yeah,
I didn't get it.
You're able to hide behind the anonymity of just I'm behind my keyboard so I can say whatever I want and no one's going to find out. And it kind of enables people to spew whatever they want with no kind of regard of any recrimination. So maybe that's...
And call it free speech.
Yeah, absolutely. It is disappointing in that regard when you think about the developments that have happened within the world due to social media and the positive ways in which it can be utilised.
I watched that documentary, The Social Dilemma. It did make me think we do need to adopt some pretty fundamental changes in how we engage with social media. Yeah. Or rather, how we use social media to engage with one another.
There's certainly something to be said. Someone who was talking about it the other day about you have to have some kind of registration for your social media so that people can basically so that people are accountable for what they say. People wouldn't say half of the things that they say on social media. You wouldn't say them face to face.
Yeah, and the sort of anonymity side of it's dangerous, and it's difficult. It's difficult for people in the spotlight as well, because they get it from all sides. No. We can dream.
We can dream. We can dream. So actually, we didn't really get to working out who you wanted to put in a bubble, did we? It was Piers Morgan with someone who's going to argue with him. That was about it, really, wasn't it?
Piers Morgan was someone that will drive him mad, but might change him.
Yeah.
If it was me, I'd probably be. If I was going to go into a bubble with someone, I'd want to go into a bubble with someone that basically I could annoy into teaching me a really, really good skill that I'm interested in. Like a really amazing pedal steel player or something, nice. Like BJ Cole.
That would be a good utilisation of the time. Either that or get like Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec to teach you woodwork or something along those lines.
That would be good fun. I'd happily bubble with Ron.
No, don't want to do that one. No, this is the one I get to have some kind of influence over. Okay, let's go with this. Number 4. What's your favourite roast?
My favourite Sunday lunch. Are you allowed to have 2?
Go for it.
So I've been vegetarian for a year and 3 months now.
Oh, wow.
Which, generally speaking, I've actually enjoyed it and feel healthier and slightly smugger. But I do love a chicken roast. But it's got to be cooked really well. Okay. My wife, actually, she's half Italian and half German. So one half of her is like, food is nutrition. That is all it is. We will have potatoes. And the other half of her, this Italian. So she'll kind of throw a potato into a pot and it will come out the most delicious potato you've ever eaten. So she makes roast chicken. She buys it in a plastic bag.
Yeah.
And cooks it in the oven. And whenever she cooks roast chicken, everyone says, how on earth do you get it so tender and succulent? Wow. The perfect chicken. She goes, I put it in a carrier bag in the oven. So I do love a chicken roast. But my favourite general lunch is like the bits and pieces lunch. Like, when the table is just full of plates of little different things and with absolutely no real correlation between.
Nothing links together, but yeah.
Yeah, oat cakes and cheese and chutney on one thing, and then like falafel and hummus on the next, and then I'll just snack away on that for the entire day.
I think chicken's up there. I think just on the grounds of it's something that happens so often. I guess that's kind of like the go-to roast for us. But we discovered, and it might have just been through watching too many cookery shows throughout lockdown, but the idea of turning the chicken upside down.
I've heard this.
Completely mind-blowing.
Juice sinks to the breast instead of the...
Completely. Yeah. So you get all that, and it's just tender and moist and delicious, and it's like, why have I not known this for the last 30 years of my life? Why is this...
Don't they say you're supposed to shove a lemon up their bum or something as well?
Yeah. Lemon, little bit of herbs and stuff, and then flip it upside down. Happy days. It's not specifically British, but it's certainly a very British kind of thing, isn't it? There's something about a roast.
There are a few, even though England is not seen as a sort of culinary hotspot.
No.
There are a few things that nowhere else does well. Nowhere else does a fry up in the same way.
No.
Nowhere else does a roast.
Some of them try, don't they? Some of them do try. Yeah. What's the worst place for getting English food?
Probably America.
Yeah.
I mean, the stuff that you can't get in America is quite astonishing. Like, you can't get good cheese in America.
No,
have you been there?
Only like very, very briefly, but not for any amount of time.
You just can't get cheese, like, at all.
What do you mean you can't get cheese?
You can get, what do they call it, like Monterey Jack.
Yeah.
And you can get all those kind of like slightly Edam-y kind of cheeses.
Okay, like the plasticky kind of...
The plasticky, all they sell cheese for is to put on burgers. Like,
is it one of those things that when you've been away for a little while and you come back to England, you're like, cheese?
There's been a couple of times when we've been abroad when people have taken us for traditional meals.
Yeah.
At our request, usually, like, we'd love to see, kind of like what the traditional fare is.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of places we've been where I'm not going to name names, but I've left thinking like, you guys can do a lot better than this.
I'm a little bit of a novice when it comes to a lot of foods. I'm quite traditional. I was brought up in Yorkshire, fairly standard.
Yeah.
And a roast, yes, I know that I understand. Fish and chips, yes, that I can get. Lasagna,
Easy.
Oh, you're pushing the boat out now.
Yeah.
So,
bit la-di-da.
I know exactly. So yeah, my taste buds have certainly got a lot of discovering to do, I suppose.
The first time I went to Italy, I went to Rome, and I was working with a band, and one of them was Italian.
Yeah.
And we went straight to this restaurant, and I felt like it was the first time I'd eaten. It was like someone sort of like given, like I was short-sighted and they'd given me glasses or something.
Wow.
I was like, what the hell? It is extraordinary. Like,
yeah,
I mean,
we went to one pizza place, particularly, and because of the fact that my wife's gluten-free, it means you kind of got to search around for places. And we found this place that had been recommended, and we walked past it a few times, but hadn't even registered. And then we went into it and had the most amazing gluten-free pizza, and it's
wow.
Gluten-free pizza is not something that you can really experience positively. It's just something that exists. So actually having this pizza and going, whoa, this is amazing pizza, let alone the fact that it's GF as well. That was
definitely
awesome.
Changing, I think, around the world. Like, people are getting. I remember in the old days of Keane, Richard, the drummer, has always been vegetarian, and he would just eat basically tomato pasta everywhere, and that was all that was available.
Yeah.
But now, even like, we went into a vegan restaurant. I can't do veganism; it's too tough for me. But we went into a vegan restaurant in Buenos Aires, which is like famous for steak.
Yeah,
it's like steak land. And this was like a really nice restaurant. All they did was vegan food. It's great.
Nice. This one, we're going to let the wheel go. I'm going to go big spin and see if it'll end up on... There's one that nobody's picked yet. There's one that it's never landed on.
You need to make it lighter.
I haven't weighted it. I haven't biased it. Yes!
No way.
Absolutely. There it is. You can even zoom in if you like. Oh, so pleased. Right. This is the one question that nobody has yet been asked. Jesse Quin,
how are you?
It's landed on you, and it's number 11. Bath or shower?
Shower.
So what? Why that more than a nice soak?
Because the thing is with the bath is that I feel like you never get your knees underwater.
Yeah.
Well, I can't anyway. And the other thing is, you're kind of like forever regulating the temperature. You run it and you're like, oh, I can't get in. And eventually you get in bit by bit. And then you're like, God, it's freezing. So you're like filling it up with hot water, and then the hot water's run out. And it ends up not being that relaxing and actually being like a bit of a chore. So I'd prefer a shower. Having said that, we've just had the bathroom done in our house. The guy in charge said, can you order a bath that you want? And I don't know anything about ordering baths. And I was like, okay, yeah. So I went online, like looked at a bunch of baths, and I thought, oh, that one looks cool. That looks like a nice, comfy bath.
Yeah.
And it turned up, you could put a horse in it.
Amazing.
It's absolutely gigantic. And our bathroom is not gigantic. I mean, it's completely dwarfed the space. But part of me was like, and they put in this special pressurized tank thing that means that we should have more hot water and all this sort of stuff. Part of me was like, this could be what changes it all,
Could be life changing, yeah, absolutely. There is something, I do love a soak in a bath.
You strike me as a bath guy.
Yeah, well, shower tends to be the kind of like the functional process. Okay, that's the everyday, and then every now and then I'll get home from a day at work and I'll just be like, I just need. And I look at Tamsin. She's like, you need me to run you a bath. And I was like, could you? That be So every now and then,
so achy and cold.
In fact, I remember. The first time I went with a band up to London, we were doing some TV thing. They'd put us up in a hotel, and we travelled up from Plymouth with the rest of the guys, and we got up to London, the big city, and all the rest of the band were like, "Oh, this is really exciting! First night out." We were quite young at the time. First night out, right? We're going to go out and just discover, go see some bars and stuff, and all the rest of it. And they said, "Are you going to come?" I was like, "No, I'm good." So they all went out. I ran a really deep bath, got a cup of tea, and then took a newspaper into the bath. That was it. I was sorted. I was like,
bliss. Do you know how to rate a hotel?
go on.
Club sandwich. Every hotel that's worth its salt has club sandwich on the room service menu.
Okay.
If it's a really good hotel, it'll be a really good club sandwich.
Okay.
While we're talking about hotels, baths and showers, would you mind if I told you about my favourite hotel shower that I've ever been in?
Go for it.
The W Hotel in Mexico City.
Yeah.
We checked in, went up to our rooms, and I opened the door and I was like, this is a weird room. Like, what's weird, what's different? And I sort of thought, well, there's the bed. But then kind of like 2/3 of the way along the room, it was suddenly all tiled.
Okay.
And I was like, what's this, like a wet room in the room or something? There's a hammock in here. What's this hammock doing in the middle of the room? And they'd set up this wet room in the hotel room that had showers in the wall and the ceiling,
right,
and a hammock.
So you could.
So it's like a bath shower.
So
bed.
you could have a hammock shower.
So you lie in the hammock with the shower on.
That's crazy.
Away with your cocktail. But I thought that was a really weird idea, and it was awesome because you're sort of gently swinging as well. You know.
Obviously, you have to have a go, right?
I did think, if my old school teachers who said I'd amount to nothing could see me now in a hammock in a shower in Mexico.
They'd say they were right. What are you doing with your life? Yeah, that's a little bit bizarre. Okay. Bizarre. I was going to say, when you first started that story, I was thinking, okay, so need to remember the name of this hotel for when I eventually get to Mexico. Need to look it up. Yeah, I'm not that bothered now.
I'll tell you what, if you do some travelling, you could do a lot worse than Mexico City. That is an amazing place.
Right, last one. You ready? Here we go. Okay, well, this goes back to your travelling, I guess. This is number 23. Where have you been in the world that you would most want to go back to? Now, for someone like you, you've done a lot of travelling and been a lot of places. Now, yeah. I guess some of that time you get a chance to see the place. I guess some of the time you don't really, because it's just a case of getting in and getting out.
With touring, you do have to make a sort of decision about whether you're going to exhaust yourself with using all the time you can to sort of see places. There are loads of places in the world that I've been to where I thought I'd love to come back here for like a month.
Yeah.
And like really get my head around it. One is Buenos Aires. It's an amazing city. Another is Mexico City. And then like funny places like Copenhagen and Berlin.
Oh, wow.
I spent quite a lot of time in Berlin, but I still feel like I could probably live there for a year and not get bored. But here's the thing.
Yeah, go on.
You know, when you go somewhere for the first place and you get that kind of like little kind of excitement feeling and it's all new. And then you go there again and it's still great. And then after a while that it kind of wears off, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
There's only one place for me where that has never worn off, and that's New York. Every time I've ever been to New York, you just get that kind of instant like buzz and excitement. And there is like something about that city. And I've long said, I mean, my wife and I were actually planning on moving there a while ago. Oh, and then for various reasons, we ended up in Suffolk.
Most people's normal choice, yeah, New York.
Yeah, I mean, most people are sort of, which is it going to be? Yeah. But yeah, if push came to shove, I'd say I would like to go and spend some proper time in New York.
Now, that is one place that I have been. I went a couple of years ago.
Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I went over on my own and decided I was going to do a bunch of stuff. Went on a hip hop tour of New York and went round to various different places and did the whole. Went to the top of the rock and Central Park. But yeah, going there on your own is quite an interesting thing as well. I remember being in Central Park just with my headphones with my iPod on, just wandering around. I listened to a lot of hip hop on that trip. Yeah, just listening to Nas walking around the streets of New York was
oh yeah,
brilliant.
That's what it's about. one of the really nice things about touring North America is you, like 9 times out of 10, you either start in New York and finish in LA, or start in LA and finish in New York. So if I can get away with it, and Jules lets me, I'll always fly out a few days early or stay a few days at the end. Usually go out early. But there was one trip to New York where I went out a week early. I think there was only 3 or 4 days where I was on my own. But like you're saying, I was just hanging out, checking out some stores and some areas, and there's so much to soak up there.
Yeah. I was staying with some friends who were living in Brooklyn at the time. I ended up going out to is it Coney Island, where the fair is and stuff like that.
I've never done the Coney Island thing. I'd like to do that. I've sort of I fell out of love with America quite seriously. I felt like when Trump got in, after a little while, and that all of those divisions that we were talking about, and all the kind of hatred, even like the left hating, you think of the left as being more, empathetic.
Accepting. Yeah.
There was just this really vile atmosphere. We were there for a week or so in the year before last, and then for a tour that we had to cancel at the start of last year. And there was this like weird thing that you couldn't put your finger on. Everyone was a little bit afraid of each other, or like, because America's great at that. You can sit down at a bar and the person next to you will be like, how's it going?
Yeah.
And a little bit of that had been lost. And I felt sort of, I mourned it a little bit. I thought that's one of the things that makes the place great. I feel like now, even having Trump gone from being in charge, has given me a bit of a sort of renewed interest in spending time there. And I don't know if you've travelled around the States at all, but there's loads of places that are like Burlington is in Vermont, I think.
Yeah,
that's an amazing place. Like, it's really seasonal, full of cool stores, cool things to do. Awesome. Nashville's awesome.
Yeah. So many places I'd love to go to.
Skip LA. Don't bother with LA.
I want to go to New Orleans.
I've never been to New Orleans.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. Lots of places to go in the future. Okay, Jesse, just having talked to you now, I've got to add a few places more to my bucket list.
I need to write a bucket list. Everyone seems to have one except me.
So we have got to the end of our spins. How was your spin the wheel experience, Jesse?
It was great. I feel like, as usual, I've rambled. I'm a terrible rambler, but...
Mate,
you asked me on. It's your own fault.
Welcome to the club. In the meantime, have you got anything that you'd like to plug, let people know about, that you're up to or have been up to?
Maybe I could make something up. I've written the latest Harry Potter book.
Excellent, nice. Yeah, I mean, keep the ambition.
That'll be out later.
So you guys, have you been writing with the band at all?
Yeah, we've got some demos flying around, and we've got some Mount Desolation demos piling up as well. I don't know what we'll do Keane wise. We've got some gigs booked, but sort of quite sporadically. I think Tom wants to do some more of his solo stuff, and it's quite nice not having a plan with that kind of, because there's such a machine involved with it, and there's so much money involved with all the crew and transport and all of that stuff.
I can imagine,
it can become a bit boring, all of that side of it. And if you don't have any plans, it makes it a bit more fun.
I guess so, but I know we'll see you out and about at some point within the next year or so.
Yeah, we've got some in the diary that I'm sure will happen.
All the very, very best to you and your family and your artistic endeavours down there in Suffolk. I look forward to hearing and seeing some more of them in the not so distant future.
Well, thanks for asking me to be on, Eddie.
Not a problem. Thanks for spinning the wheel. And that was the brilliant Jesse Quin. Thank you, Jesse, for joining me here on the Spin the Wheel podcast. Glad to have a bit of a catch-up and have a bit of a natter. We talked for quite a while, ladies and gentlemen. That's to be said. There was a considerable amount of stuff left on the edit floor. If you've enjoyed that, then please tell your friends. Click the like button. Subscribe to the YouTube. Rate us on iTunes. And let me know. Give me some feedback. Tell me what you thought. I love hearing from anyone who takes the time to actually get in touch. So I'll be back again in a couple of weeks' time with the brilliant Tandy Houghton. Tandy's a comedy writer who I know from a writing group. She's a great chat, lovely girl from down south. So catch up with us then. I've been the Edi Johnston Bit. You can catch up with my stuff at edijohnstonbit.com and find me on Facebook and all the rest of that stuff. I will see you again in a couple of weeks to spin that wheel. See you then. Take care. Ta-da.